Right. Hello, Dr. Oluwaseun Ogunbona. Thank you for joining me today. I know you are a very busy person, so I'm very grateful for this opportunity you have afforded me to interview you on your journey so far. So thank you for coming. Yeah. So to start with, I would like you to just share with me how your background and then just the highlight of your life and your career up till now.
Yeah, it's a very loaded question. Yeah, yeah. So thank you. My name is Oluwaseun Ogunbona, and then I go by Seun. Everybody call me Seun, and then it's always a challenge sometimes here letting people know how to pronounce the name Seun. And then I was born. I usually say I was born, bred, and buttered in Lagos, Nigeria. So for the most part, I did not really think I'd live, outside of Lagos until I moved to the United States. So I mean, there are times you probably travel, maybe very, very few times, go to maybe Badon or at one point I think I went to Abuja for like 1 or 2 weeks. But apart from that, I've never lived outside of Lagos until I came to the US in 2013. I came to the US in 2013, and then after then, I think I've visited maybe Canada by going through the border in Michigan, and then I've visited UK for 2 days, and I've been in the US. So in Nigeria, where I came from, I went to all my education there up to medical school. So I came to the US after I had finished medical school in Nigeria. And I came to the US because I got a fully funded scholarship to come and do a PhD in cellular and molecular physiology at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. So I moved to Baltimore and spent 5 years there doing my PhD. And then after that, I was able to go back to do residency training. Always been a goal of mine to practice medicine. And then along the line, I realized that I did love research because I believe that's the way that you can always push the boundary of knowledge and make things better for everyone. And so after the PhD, I went back to residency training. I did my residency training in anatomic pathology at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And then when I finished that, I went for fellowship training in neuropathologist. I did that at the Texas Medical Center. That's like the biggest medical center in the world.
Wow.
And I was able to work at. So the fellowship actually sponsored by Oluwaseun Methodist Hospital, which is the #1 hospital in the whole of Texas. I think right now there are like 15, 16 in the country, in the US. But then the fellowship was jointly run, so it's like almost equal time spent at Oluwaseun Methodist MD Anderson Cancer Center. MD Anderson is the #1 cancer center in the world. And then Texas Children's Hospital, which is the biggest children's hospital in the United States currently. So so that's where I did my neuropathology fellowship training. And then when I finished that earlier this year, not earlier, like about June of this year, I moved to San Antonio, which is where I am right now. So I got a job as assistant professor of pathology at UT Health San Antonio. And here I am working as a neuropathologist with like joint appointment in the Department of Pathology. And then they have an Alzheimer's disease research center called Big Institute, BIGGS, Big Institute. And so I work like half of my time spent in the Department of Pathology and then half of my time spent in the Big Institute.
Wow.
So outside of that, I've been as a Nigerian, true Nigerian. But I like to play soccer, which is something that I did very well growing up. At some point, I didn't really play. But then when I came to the US, I picked up playing soccer again, and I've been trying to do that up to now.
Wow. That, and I know you have talked about the first in this. We'll get into that. You'll get into that. There's one question I think I would like to ask you. You and I went to the same high school in Nigeria, and that is where we became friends. You were known to be very good in mathematics. I mean, extremely good in mathematics. In fact, if my memory is serving me well, you were, we went for this, I think, cowbell national competition at some point. Oh yeah, okay. So mathematics and medicine back home in Nigeria, I don't think both of them mix together. So at what point did you decide that it is going to be medicine and not engineering, or not science, or maybe physics or mathematics itself? So at what point did you decide on that?
Yeah, that's really very interesting. So actually, it was the cowbell competition then, right? The inaugural one was just limited to Lagos State. So that was it was the Lagos State one I participated in, and then after that, there was a separate national mathematics competition I went to. So that one was sponsored by the National Mathematics Center or something like that. Yeah, but that was a long time. Yeah, and then you're very right. Mathematics has always been my best subject. And at one point, I think even to now, I still like, I still got it in me, Sometimes I see people put up some mathematics question and I want to really solve it for them. But then I think, at one point I can really say that, well, if it's not mathematics, then I'm not for it. And I think it was my love for mathematics that was almost going to drive me into engineering. And actually, the first time I wrote the university matriculation exam in Nigeria, UME then, my first choice was actually an engineering program. So, but somehow, I screwed up in my choice of university. So initially, I thought, when I look at the book here, it was like petrochemical/chemical engineering, and then there were just 3 institutions that were put under that. It was FUTO, Nigeria Delta University NDU, and River State University of Science and Technology. So I had thought that because it was a 3 option, it was best. And so I chose 2, where you were allowed to choose 2. So I chose 2. I think my first choice was, I think RSUST. I'm not very sure, but I chose 2 of those. But then, these schools are like in the east. They're far from where I am. And at that time, when I did the UM, it was still awaiting results. I did not have the opportunity to do GCE like most people will do before their SSCE. Yeah. So it was awaiting for me. And so when the jam came out, I did very well. I had calls that would get me in. But then my dad started developing, my mom too. They were like, why do we have to go that far?
That far.
Yeah. And so my dad went for a training then in my dad is a medical lab technologist. And so he went for a training there, and he was talking with one of his boss, who is the medical doctor. They were just catching up and trying to know about their family. And then my dad was like, oh, I have a son, if going into the university. And then he asked, oh, what university? And he was like, oh, River State University, wants to do petroleum or petrochemical engineering. And the man was like, no, you can do that at the University of Lagos. Like, no, I didn't know you can do that. It's not in the brochure. I was like, no, my son is doing petroleum engineering in Unilag. And if you want, I can even connect you to the HOD of the department. of chemical engineering. So I was trying to change the university, but because we did not do it on time, because my dad was also like, we are not even seeing your SSC result, you know. So we waited, and then the SSC result came out. I did very well, and so it was too late to change it to first choice. So they were able, even though we spent so much money then, to change from, you know, to have Unilag in there, but Unilag was only put as second choice. And people who know Unilag know that Unilag will almost never take second choice.
Exactly.
So that's how I missed out in that admission. And then after missing out, you know, everybody was surprised because even the professor was like, "Oh yeah, the cutoff was less than what is called, so it will be in." And then when the name was published in the newspaper, like my dad called the people like, "His name is not there." Like, no, how come? And then he realized that, oh, it was second choice. And so at that point, because of the waiting did not work out, you know, my dad came back. The other option was to do maybe mathematics education. And my dad was like, no. He's still young. He can wait another year. And so when my dad came back, he was telling me, you know, then my mom said something. It was like, maybe God did not want me to do engineering. Because my mom all along wanted me to be a medical doctor. Because that's always been my dream. Like growing up, you know, I know then when we're in like what we call elementary school, we even go on radio and we're like, what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, unfortunately that, you know, some of these things were lost then. Like, but, you know, I was on the radio and telling everybody that I want to be a medical doctor. I didn't know how that came, but I think it must have been because me and my parents were working in the hospital. You know, both of them were working in the lab. So since when I was very young, and I can still remember, I've always wanted to be a medical doctor. But it was just my love for mathematics that almost drove me to engineering. But when that did not work, and my mom said that, I'm like, I just felt like to do medicine, like now I have to struggle with biology. Not like I was not good in all those things, right? But I just felt like mathematics was kind of very natural. Like, you know, the process, you wake me up anytime. I don't have to do any cramming. I just understood it. So, but I told my mom like, okay, then I can do medicine. You know, I was even telling my mom that, you know, I can still be a doctor by doing engineering, and I'll do PhD. Like, no, it's not the same. So then I decided to do another jam, like UME, for the purpose of medicine. And even before I even went for medicine, you know, there was like so many things that were coming to me. I was like, let me do computer science with economics in OAU. There was something like that in OAU. Yeah. There, like, maybe I should do computer science. I cleaned that. Like, maybe I should do, you know, before I was like, okay, medicine it is. And that's the first choice medicine, second choice medicine.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the start UME, the result was without. And now when it's done on me, like, you know, you can even be very good. You can have everything set, but doesn't mean you can't control the output. You know, you can do your best, because that time was really very like devastating to me. So like it was disappointing, like because I had read so much on that UME and hope that I was going to do very well. It was without the whole center was cancelled. You know, even wrote to JAM like, you know, I'm a very good student. These are all my records. It was all on deaf ears, you know. And so during that time, just before I went to do that jam, like, you know, a week or so before, one of my very good friends when I was in Labasco, when I was in Lagos Baptist Secondary School, you know, was able to reconnect with me because I lost in touch with all my friends after high school. And so when he came to my house, he was the one that told me about like all these foreign exams, like SAT, like TOEFL. And so that kind of gave me fresh hope, you know? And then that helped me during that time because now I had hope in something much bigger than you and me. You know, so I was able to survive that. And then again, I did my third jam. That third jam, I wasn't really expecting much. I was like, let me just do the jam as a second choice because my hope then was like, we're going to travel abroad to do like college and all that. But yeah, man, you know, that jam was really useful for me. You know, I did well and I was able to get into University of Lagos, and everything really changed from there.
Fantastic story there. Now I will take it a bit further. At the University of Lagos, there's it's on record that you had all A's through up to your MBBS 2 exam, and then that made you I think that maybe the best student at that point. There is something that now happened that I read about that I think you need to shed a bit of more light on. There's what they call it intercalated bachelors. I mean, how does that work after your 300 level in medicine that you now had to branch to some department to study? Was it based on your performance? Was it just your choice? How did that happen that you now had a bachelor's degree in first class in physiology, I guess, and then continue again with your medicine? How does that happen at the medical school in University of Lagos?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's kind of like, you know, when I look back, you know, it's kind of some of the things that make me like just very grateful, you know, because these are some of the things that maybe I would never have thought about, you know. So when I got into Unilag, and then at that point when I got into Unilag, because of some of the other experiences in my life, and I thought that, okay, it's very important for you to be a leader, to really be involved when you are somewhere, you know, because I had been cheated out of an opportunity for a scholarship abroad, you know, and I thought that, oh, maybe my dad was one like be person, you know, maybe I might be able to get it, you know. So I got to Unilag and I was in class. I became the class rep at my second year. So in my first year, I became like assistant class rep. So, and then because in second year I was class rep, many of the lecturers really they know me very well, and then they were also very impressed that even as a class rep, I was doing very well academically. So, and I became friends with many of them. You know, they were my good friends. So when we did the first year, and we were expecting the result, I had been doing very well in my in-courses. So, but you know, it's just that anxiety of like, when is the result going to be hard? When is it going to be hard? So, and I went to the Department of Physiology that morning. So there was one of our lecturers there, Miss memory be blessed. He's late now, you know. So I knocked on his door and I was like, oh, Dr. Benebise, no, when I'm just trying to ask on behalf of this, when do you think our result will be out? And he was like, don't worry, it's going to be hard when it will be hard, you know. And like, but he was like, but you, what did you get your in-courses? Then I told him like, you get a distinction. That was like, oh, you get it. Yeah, I know. It's like just that there's something that you can do if you have a distinction, you know. But many of you, you may not want to do it. I'm like, what is this? Tell me, maybe I might be interested. And he told me that, oh, in the past, you know, like, and that's like maybe in the 70s or 80s. So people get a distinction in one area, they will go abroad. Then I think they were going to the United Kingdom then. And then they will go and spend extra year to get a bachelor's degree in that area. You know, like physiology has a bachelor's degree also. So like, so it was like something that we can be able to do here too, you know, if I'm interested. And I'm like, yeah, I can be interested, you know. And so that's how it came up. And there's one of our very, now emeritus professor, Professor Shofola, who had actually gone through something like that back then, but then he was the deputy vice chancellor. So everything just worked out and they were able to formulate it like if I was truly interested. So of course the result came out and I had like all distinctions, having anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So at that time they had a bachelor's degree in Unilag for physiology and biochemistry. So I could have choose one of the two. They didn't have anatomy. Maybe that was what I would have done anyway. But physiology and biochemistry they had. And so Dr. Benebise was also a physiologist. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it worked out. Although at one point I had struggled, you know, with it, like, how do I not leave my classmates? And then I'll come back and I'll be behind, you know. But yeah, thankfully that I did that. I was really happy. I was grateful, right? That one extra year, really opened on many doors for me too.
Wow, that is interesting. Very, very interesting. So now you have a MBBS, you have a bachelor's, and then you have a PhD. So that is interesting to know. Now, it interests me to also to ask you this question, because I know you have written numerous exams, as everybody will have imagined, having this great result over the years. What are some of your motivations? What motivates you to always want to do well, always want to succeed in your exams, both academically as well as in your career? Because I know that even practicing as a medical doctor in the US, you have written some exams. So what motivates you after all of these many exams? I can only imagine going through medical school, you have written tons of exams, then branching to physiology, you write some exams there. Throughout your PhD, you wrote some exams, and even your fellowship and all of your trainings, you have written some exams. What motivates you to always want to succeed in all of these exams?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just see exams as ordeals that you have to stay to get to the next level. That's the way I usually look at them. And every time I always want to know in advance, like, so there's going to be this exam at this point in time. And so I start paying attention. So people who know me, like from medical school, they know that one thing I don't play with is lecture. I want to be at every lecture, and I want to be sitting down in front, focus on the lecturer. Although it turns out that maybe, my desire to always want to sit in the front may have been because of my hearing impairment, which I didn't really know, formally until when I came to the US. But that's the way it is. I don't really reach that much, but then I always pay attention when people are talking about any subject, and try to pick as much as possible. And so because of that, over time, I realized that when the exam time comes, I just went to prepare myself, just be like, based on the things I've learned, is there any deficiency that I need to really quickly tidy up? And sometimes it's just that, you're just blessed with achievement, right? There are many people that even have more aptitude than I have. Maybe they don't just achieve, right? Because examination is also different. Some people get anxious with exam. They may know so much, and then they just make errors. I started out like that too. I think I know everything about something, and then when I come out of the exam, I realize I make this error, and so over time I begin to be very much careful. Sometimes in the exam go through again, and then see whether I can have maybe an additional insight before I truly say that, no, I don't get out of the exam before the time goes out. I would probably want to use every time. Just sit down there. Just keep reading it, So I think for me, I just see that exams are just like everything in life. You overcome a test, a challenge to get to the next level. So the more exams you write, the more likely you're going to get higher, to go higher. So that's why I don't get scared by exam anymore, so I'm just like, and I'm not really scared of failing too, because that's another thing that, make people say, I don't like, let me do it, right? I'm human, we're all human, anybody can fail. So let me do it. And then if I do it, I do well, I move on. If I don't do well, then maybe I can refine the process,
And that is strange. I mean, this is very strange because not everybody wants to fail. Or not everybody, I think I'll put it this way. So this might be very strange, but let me put it this way. Have you ever, I know you have said, no, have you ever failed before? Have you ever failed an exam before? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I've failed before. It might not be a lot,
Okay.
You know, maybe it might be less than 1% of all the time, but for sure, I failed before. So
Wow, that is, I mean, that is good to know. I mean, for people that are listening to the broadcast, to also know that failing an exam is not the end of life, and failing an exam for a brilliant child means that maybe something does happen that you just need, like you say, maybe you just need to adjust that area and then you move on. And if you have failed, it just less than 1% of the time. So, and one point that you made that I think everybody also needs to understand is you are successful because you are not afraid to fail. And I think that is very key, because the fear of failure itself is what is making people to fail. So when you know that, yeah, it is possible for me to fail, I'm not afraid to fail, but I will try anyways. I will try irrespective of my failure. And that is what will keep people moving forward. So thank you so much for that. Now, I would, okay, go ahead.
And another thing before you go is that, you know, sometimes people always wonder about, like, what are people going to think? If I fail, what people think? Understand? You know, if she Ogunbona fail, like, everybody's going to wonder, like, Ogunbona fail. You know, they feel very ashamed. But I just get to that point in my life that I don't really care. I look at myself like anybody else. I'm not different from other people. Understand? So if they fail, I can also fail. If I fail, anybody can fail. You know, and so at that point, I don't, you know, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. So that's another thing, you know, like, especially some parents who put pressure on their kids, right? So that kids feel like, if I fail, my parents going to do that. But I didn't have that kind of parent, you know. So I can always tell them, like, look, you know, whatever, my parents will feel like I did my best. They know I did my best, irrespective. They're not going to say, oh, why did you fail that exam? You did not study very well. You know, because sometimes you fail not because you did not study very well.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what people really have to understand. We are all human beings, and so we will always fail at something.
Wow, that is interesting. Thank you so much. Like I mentioned earlier, you and I went to the same secondary school, same high school, and this is not like it's not an elite high school. Let me put it that way. It's not an elite high school. So, what would you advise somebody who currently is not from a family or is not born with a silver spoon, going by your own experience? How would you advise such person? Say somebody that is currently living in the backside of Lagos and is attending one secondary school that doesn't even exist in the local government area. How would you advise somebody like that to dream to attain the kind of success you have attained in your life, knowing that you and I too went through this kind of, we had this kind of background? So let me reframe the question. For somebody who is currently having the same background like yourself, like you had, and like you have been able to bring yourself out by by hard work and other things, which I'm going to ask about, what would you advise such person to do, to focus on, or not to do?
Okay, so the thing is, I'm going to first say that, you know, like, life is full of all possibilities. Like, anything is possible. You know, there's nothing that can not happen. Like you said, you know, many people are not born with silver spoon in their mouth, but it doesn't mean that because you're starting, even if, to me, I always feel like life is not a race. Even if it's a race with yourself alone. Understand? And then even if it were to be a race with everybody, know that life is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So that means you can start from behind and gradually work your way to the point that you can even overtake people that they think they were already in front. Understand? And one thing, the first thing is to be grateful. Right? Gratitude is very, very important. You have to be grateful with whatever you have. Even that thing that you think you don't have something, but if you think very well, you feel like even the opportunity to even have an education, even if you think it's the worst education, right? the opportunity to even have an education is something to be grateful for, you know. So when I was growing up, I didn't look at, what school, whether I went to a public school, I didn't look at it as if it was a deficiency for me. I always look at it as it was, the best, and I had to make the best out of it. And I didn't hear stories about my own grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who was in a village, and his cousin, when they come back from school for holiday, they will get their book and they will study it. Until one day, he was able to say that, please, can you also take me to Lagos? Even if it's just to go and be serving there, and before, he eventually went to Yaba Tech, became a assistant director of Nigerian Railway in those days. So what I'm saying is that, like, even when you think you don't have something, you say there are some people that don't even have what you have. So you have to be grateful and to use that opportunity very well. And that brings me to the second thing. You have to be adaptive, as you at the level that you are, you have to be thinking, how can I change some of the things so that I can be making progress, even if it's gradual progress. And you have to, you have to work hard. And you have to work hard, if some other people, for instance, if you are not a very, if you feel like your IQ is not as great as some other people, right? If they are reading 1 hour, you probably want to spend 3 hours or more. So you have to know that we are not all at the same level in life. They just have to know what are my weaknesses? What can I do to overcome those weaknesses? So I think those are some of the things I'm going to say.
Fantastic. That is good. Thank you so much. I know you currently, like you mentioned, practice as an assistant professor at the university you are currently, the hospital you are currently working. Would you say that your training at the University of Lagos Medical School has helped you a lot, or would you say there's nothing? Because what we have heard in recent times, people are beginning to kind of water down the trainings that they got from Africa, Nigeria specifically. Was a waste. Was your training at the University of Lagos a waste, or was it very instrumental to the person you are today?
Oh, 100% very instrumental, because you have to understand, like, foundation is very important. So if the foundation were not solid, right, whatever beautiful building that you are seeing that is being put on that foundation will have crumbled. So yeah, I think my training at the University of Lagos and in Nigeria as a whole was really very, very instrumental. I mean, I even wrote a board exam recently, and one of the questions was something that I had learned in anatomy, that's way back, more than 10 years, no, more than even like close to 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so like everything counts, everything really counts. I think it is that the system is very efficient and very effective, so you don't have to do too much to get some of the results because everything is really working at time. So, but I think our training really was very solid, and that's one of the reasons why doctors get into the system. I'm not the only person who went to medical school in Nigeria who is practicing in the US. I have even mentors that it was when I was applying for residency I realized, and one of them now finished from University of Lagos was recently was elected to National Academy of Medicine or Science now. Went to University of Lagos. So all these things really, really, really count. So I think it's wrong to water down the training in Nigeria. I think wherever you are, just do the best. What is a global village right now? In my own days, I'll be doing SAT, from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I'll still compete favorably well with people there that are trained like in the US. So wherever you are, if you feel like your training is not adequate, it's just the same thing. Like you go to some public school and you feel like when you're writing heck that they didn't teach you in your school. But no, you have the syllabus. You can supplement, you can buy the textbook, you can develop yourself. Understand? So, but I think University of Lagos is a very prestigious university. To be honest, the training there was really very, very solid. I don't know for other universities,
Well, I went to OAU, and I can tell you that the foundational program I did there was also very instrumental to the person I am today. So I think people should not water down the trainings that we are getting from Nigeria. And for peanuts, for that matter, it's for peanuts. We don't. If you compare how much we pay,
I think that's what I've realized in life. We tend to value things based on how much we spend to acquire them. So if I go to the store and I see something there for $1,000, understand? I might not feel like it's really that valuable. But then if the same thing, you take it to another store and they're selling for $10,000, understand? You will buy it and you will even think that, oh, this is really worth more than what you saw for $1,000. Understand? So sometimes it is the value is usually attached based on the price you pay for something. It's just a basic human nature.
Yeah, I have two more questions before I allow you to go, Dr. Ogunbona. Number one is that, what is success to you? How can you define success to you? That's number one. Number two is going to be that what are some of the factors that has contributed to your own success till date?
Yeah, success to me, I think it's a very, very broad concept, and then different definition, But I think that sometimes success is societally driven. So what is success in one society might not be success in another society. And then some other people will see success as being personally driven. So that what is success to Mr. A may not be success to Mr. B, So, but at the end of the day, success is when you are able to achieve some set or defined goal. So if I say that at the end of the year, I want to have gotten a job. If I get that job, then that is that I'm successful. So it kind of like vary, but at the same time too, why people are trying to personalize success, I think it's also still good to look at it from a communal perspective. So if I'm trying not to use like an example that will be too controversial. But what I'm just saying is that we have to know that human being, we are social animal. And so what we do affect other people. So I have to be thinking when I'm defining my own, trying to define my own success, I have to be thinking about other people. So and that's why, like, if you say to be successful in this course is 70, if you get a 50, you might think that's success to you.
Yes.
But you end up failing. And then you will not move anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to leave it that way. I don't want to like go into too much detail, right? So it can be personalized, it can be communal, but however you define it, it just means that you are able to achieve, define, or set goals.
Okay.
And now, question is, who is defining that? It can be.
Yeah. So what are
when it comes to me now?
Yeah.
When it comes to me now, do I see myself as being successful? Do people see me as being successful? Understand? So that's a question, the goals that my parents have for me, what they define for me, by that standard, they feel I'm successful. You know, am I happy that I'm able to meet up with that goal or not? Understand? So I think, you know, overall, you know, and just with every sense of humility, I think that, you know, yeah, I think I'll say I'm successful in most areas. Let's put it that way, in most ways, you know. But then still, I don't usually dwell on my success, you know, because I know that there's still more, you know, there's still more things, there's still more territory to be conquered. There's still a lot more ahead that I have not attained. You know, forgetting what is behind, whatever success is behind, you know, and then moving forward, progressing, you know. So by God's grace, you know, being grateful for everything so far, you know, everything that God has done so far is really very important. And in terms of like things that really necessary for success, and for me personally, I think delayed gratification is really very important. So you realize that at some point you can get to a point in your life and think that you have achieved. You know, when I was coming to the US, I thought like, oh wow, that is it, you know. But then I got to the US, I realized that there is more, right? I can finish this PhD, I can do residency training, I can do fellowship training. So there are some things that I could start enjoying then. I'm like, no, let me still invest this. Let me not eat everything. Let me plant some of this as seed for the future. And so if you want to continue to be successful, you know, you have to realize that sometimes you have to make some sacrifices. There are some things you may not really enjoy now because you want to enjoy later. And then people will also feel like, okay, well, but then life is short. You know, at what point is it enough? You know, I think it's still good to be very balanced. You know, there are some, you don't play, work, pray, achieve. All those things are very important for the success. Because if you continue to work and you don't have time to play or to enjoy too, you can get burned out. And that's one of the things that happen here in the US. Like people get burned out. You know, people. Yeah. So I think it's important to have like delayed gratification. It's also important to have a good support system. You know, people who can be there for you, because whether we say it or not, like in life, you're going to have to face through a lot of challenges, and sometimes things will not go the way you have planned or expected. You know, it might even make you feel depressed. It might make you feel unhappy. But then when you have people around you who can give you another perspective to life, sometimes you might look at something as you failing, but you might also be that maybe you are successful when you look at it in another way. Because sometimes some things that we don't get probably prevent us from future calamity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
So it's very, very, very important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogunbona. One last question, and then I will allow you to. I know you said you wanted to go and play soccer before. So one last question is this. Both on your, okay, I think two questions. I would like you to answer both of them very quickly. One is that, do you have any, both from your academic standpoint and your career standpoint, any regret so far?
No regret. And when I say no regret, it doesn't mean that everything has been going 100% the way I wanted. You know, but this is me. This is just me. And I'll just say it out here. I don't usually want to regret anything in my life, because I feel like I am doing my best, and then I should be easy on myself. And I've realized that some of the things I've seen to be like a regret, and then later on I realized that, oh, it's like a blessing in disguise.
In disguise.
You know? And so I think it's very important for people to really we can all make mistakes, but at that point in time when you're making that decision, you made that decision based on what you know. It's based on how you see. Hindsight is 20/20. But at the point in time when you have to make that decision, you make nobody is going to think in their mind that something is bad and they'll still do it.
Wow.
They will think that they are doing the best at that point in time.
Wow, this is very important.
Yeah. So the choice of could I have done engineering and have it easy and maybe become so financially, free earlier? Yes, sir. Maybe yes. But then I could have done engineering, right? And then one day I might have gone to the hospital and see the way a doctor, I'm like, oh, I should have been a medical doctor. And then I feel like, I may not, at that point I feel like, oh yeah, I don't think I'm fulfilled. Yes, because there are people who have money, who have everything, but then they may still feel something is missing.
Wow, this is interesting. Thank you so much for pointing out this.
I think, yeah.
So the last thing is going to be any parting word for the audience that are going to be listening to this broadcast. Any parting word from assistant?
So my parting word, this is going to come as a disclaimer, right? But okay. Like I said, it's more of like my own opinion. Right?
Exactly.
Life is not the same to everybody. So this is based on my own experience, my own perspective. I believe that no matter who you are, where you start from, you can be anything in life. You can be anything in life. The thing is, what keep changing, and then in 20 years from now, I don't know whether some of these things might still remain what it is, right? Life keep changing. We have to be adaptive to the changes in the world. A 7-year-old 20 years ago is not going to be doing the same thing as a 7-year-old today. Life is adaptive. Artificial intelligence coming up, they may help our life much more, make our life much easier. They bring about their own challenges. So we have to be changing, that. If I don't know whether you're listening to Apala, it said Opmo Apala Chisun.
Finally.
So it's not like yesterday.
Changed.
So the world keeps changing. Some of the things that work for our parents will not work for us. Some of the things that are working for us now may not work for us in the future. So, wherever you are watching this, just know that you can be anything you want to be, but you have to be willing to adapt, right? Day to day, year to year, be adaptive. Evaluate your life from time to time. What is it that I need to change to make my life better? What is it that I'm doing right now that is working well for me, and I continue to do it to leverage that strength?
Wow.
So I think that's probably what I'm going to say.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Ogunbona. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best in your new job and in your life. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, my boss. My mentor. Yeah, my mentor. Remember when I come to the US, when I reach out to you. So it just look like yesterday, but it's over 10 years now.
Exactly.
But, yeah, thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.